Okay, this is pretty trippy. What you're looking at here is 1950 Chrysler Newport brakes. This is one half of the internally expanding disc drum, easy for me to say, disc drum brakes. So, this is the outside half of the rotor, of the drum. You can see the wear surface there. And here's the rest of it. Yeah, so the drum clamps around the brake pads. And you can see the friction material here. There's two discs right here. Another set of friction material on the back side of this back disc that rub on the back side of the drum. And this set rubs on the front side of the drum. There's two wheel cylinders, an upper and a lower, and when they spread, they push these two discs apart, and there's big 3/4 inch diameter ball bearings between these two plates, and they're on these ramps basically. So when this thing spins, essentially this outer disc rotates, because you can see a little bit of clearance right here. The outer disc rotates and it runs on these balls that are on this cam inside. You can see one right here. They're running in these like slotted ramped surfaces. So when this, what would you call it, brake surface rotates, it cams out and spreads, and it basically puts outward pressure on both halves of the brake drum. Now this thing has this system on all four corners, and this is what it's on. Yeah, pretty trippy. Let's go in the shop here and I'll show you the one of these friction units apart. Well, not apart, but here's the deal. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, kind of tough to see with all the junk on the bench, but there it is. You can see the big cam balls in the middle. This is the wildest piece of stuff, you know, and this thing is fully probably a foot in diameter. Well, let's look. We got the magic tape measure here. Yeah. Whoa, wild stuff. Yeah, it's exactly 12 inches. 12-inch diameter. And the friction material is only about 1/8 of an inch thick on here. But there's a lot of it. You know, there's 6, what you'd call 6 pucks, essentially. So, relatively speaking, one pair of these is about equivalent to the amount of surface you'd have on a modern disc brake on a mid-size car. And it's got 6 times that. So, yeah, really advanced system, you know, for 1950. It's got some problems, though. I mean, you know, one of which is that the whole system is encapsulated. So the drums just seal around this guy. So when you've got it all bolted together, where does all the friction material go? It just sits inside this whole drum assembly. So, you know, just take one more look at it now that you kind of understand and see the whole thing. So, yeah, that's it. And these drums bolt together. There's, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 10 bolts around the perimeter of them. You can see them right there. And a bunch of, you know, axle bearings. Yeah, there's the pile of hardware. And the little spring keepers to keep it all bolted together. And there's the back side of this guy, or the front side, you could say. Really slick, though. I mean, it's got, you know, a lot of cooling fins on it. Probably works really good when everything's nice and clean. But, you know, one of the problems and the failure mode for this on an old car such as this is, if you look right here, the thing sits forever, okay? Then what happens is one or both, yeah, now you can see, one or both of the wheel cylinders starts leaking. The brake fluid goes where? Down on here. And it saturates the lower friction material and whatever is bonding that onto the, let's say, rotor, lets loose. And then you have a piece of friction material, there it is on the ground, floating around inside the brake system because there's no way for it to get out because this thing is all just bolted together like a drum. So yeah, pretty trippy. So let's get a little square on view of it here. And this whole dual rotor thing just sits in here. It's not bolted down. It's piloting on these four cogs, you would say. So it's on this bearing surface, but you can see that there's a little bit of movement here. So the inner disc is captured on these 4 points. The outer disc is the one that rotates when you get a little bit of brake pressure going on. And there's these little shock absorbers in here, and we're kind of looking at those guys, and they're actually clamped in here. They got ears between here, and you can see some springs that hold the front and back rotors together. And I believe this is just an anti-resonance thing to keep it from getting into a harmonic chatter mode, you know, if something happens. But I'll bet when all this stuff is clean that they work really good. You know, on this car, it's a locomotive underneath. I mean, everything just looks like it's built by, I don't know, Kenworth. It's just so much metal on here. But really, really a pretty advanced system. And the suspension is interesting too. You know, you've got coil spring there and knee action stuff, but you know, standard lower control arm and an anti-sway bar. A decent diameter, probably 5/8, not quite 3/4, but fairly good size. And you know, the bumper's got some pretty good crush zones to it. These nice big springs up front. You know, you hit the bumper. I mean, it's a 5-mile-an-hour bumper, easy. You just bang, and the thing's going to go back a little bit, and you know, nothing really gets crunched. I mean, there's a good couple inches in here between the sheet metal panel, and there's some spring to these. So worst case, you know, you get whacked in front. These metal pieces, you go to the blacksmith and get another pair made. I mean, this is just a big strap of 1/4-inch steel, you know, and then maybe you get the bumper pounded out, but it's just all big metal. It's big metal. And you know, the frame comes up, frame rails come up from the side around the, and then it just goes across the front, you know, like a battering ram. I mean, today, you know, frame rails are just open in front, and they have kind of a cross member on going on out back. But then, you know, when you look up underneath, you got a straight 8 oil pan going all the way back. So, you know, if you need to drop the oil pan, you just drop the steering linkage and pop that baby down. It's really just an amazing amount of stuff.